Hey Sam, guess what?
What?
Some people can't talk about mock trades because they have to worry about journalistic integrity. We don't have that problem, do we?
No, we do not. We're fans. For those of you who don't listen to 32 Thoughts, Elliot Freeman, that was a little bit of a knock right there toward that podcast.
Oh yeah, all the big names who are actually plugged in and can't give up their sources. We're just a couple of guys who love this team, pay way too much
Yep.
attention to rumors, and figured, I think a lot of people want episodes like this, and they're just not going to get them from those people for the obvious reasons. But yeah, we don't got to worry about burning any bridges or sources because we don't have any.
No, we really don't. So we do have a list of players, obviously, that we're going to be talking about that the Canes could be interested, and also just what's out there in general in terms of the trade market. What's going to happen? We're going to go player by player, and Andrew and I we're going to kind of give our take of whether Carolina should go for them, whether we should not, and if we do, what the price might be for these players. And then at the end, we'll probably look at the trade pieces Carolina probably has the assets in order to probably make trades just in general. So, Andrew, I have the list here. Oh, actually, before we do, completely forgot. Great partnership with SeatGeek. You get $20 off your first purchase if you use promo code KNET Report, all one word. It's a great deal if you're trying to save money on some tickets. And remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And if you are listening to us wherever you get your podcast, please leave a rating and a review. Really, really does help us out. So, Andrew, let's get right to it. The first player I have here is a player that the Canes continue to have interest in, apparently, from the rumors. Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. I think this is a type of. I mean, if we do the trade, I've said this before, the contract doesn't look great, but if we get him, I do think it's a bit of an upgrade.
It would definitely be an upgrade. The question is what's the real Elias Pettersson? Is it what we've seen the last year and a half, or is it what's before that led to him
Yep.
getting that contract? You really can't understate just how kind of toxic the environment around the Vancouver Canucks seems to be. Obviously, moving on from JT Miller, who I think the way that his 1 year as the captain of the Rangers has gone kind of shows maybe he's not who you want to be the biggest voice in your locker room, because he was, from what I've gathered, all but bullying Pettersson when he was there. And there's, tough love from a teammate, and then there's just absolutely killing the vibe in the room. And I think Miller kind of walks that line. But Pettersson, I think, just really needs a change of scenery.
Yep, he does. And that kind of goes along with possibly another player that could go along with a change of scenery that we could give up. And that is just Barry Kokniemi. We know Vancouver has interest. I mean, you and I both agree. Pettersson kind of fits that bill. That's possibly that second line center that we could need. So the cost, Andrew, what could Carolina give? What would Carolina give up where Vancouver be like, yeah, sure, we'll do the trade?
So what's interesting if you're Vancouver is you probably wish you had made this trade last year. Move out Miller and Pettersson in the same deadline,
Yep.
because his numbers haven't fully bounced back. So his value has continued to go down. That being said, just because of the potential that is there, I don't think it's going to cost anything less than a top prospect, say a Bradley Nadeau, a roster piece, some sort of bottom six player that they can plug in, and probably a first round pick. But because Carolina is, most likely that first round pick, unless they absolutely implode in the playoffs, it's basically just going to be a glorified second round pick. So maybe even more than that.
Yes, I completely agree. So I think when it comes to the price, I think you'll have probably, especially with his production right now. I mean, you probably won't have to give up much, is my guess. I'd say probably a Bradley Nadeau and a first round pick could probably maybe itself get it done. Maybe I've thrown the sweetener, but I think those would be the two pieces, Andrew.
Yeah, and there's guys I would put higher on my trade board because I think they fit better. But I mean, if he can come to Raleigh and regain form, then obviously that's implying a bit of foresight, which I do trust this front office to kind of be able to weigh those waters. But yeah, could definitely be a piece that gets the team over the hump if he can return to his previous form.
Yep, definitely. The next player, Andrew, is Nazem Kadri from Calgary. And I think it was already reported that Carolina was on his no trade list, Andrew.
Mhm.
It could still be that way. And you and I both know it can take one phone call to change the conversation completely around the trade market. So even though, I mean, would you agree that he's a player that does fit that bill since he does play center?
Yeah, I think he's a 2C. I think he adds a lot of grit.
Yes.
Obviously, he's not prime Nazem Kadri anymore, but we've seen what happens when guys like that go from a struggling team to a good thing. Look at Taylor Hall going from Chicago to Carolina last year and how much that just
Hmm.
really revitalized his career and probably his excitement to play the game. I've heard the same thing that you have, though, that apparently Carolina is on his short no trade list, but just given how things with Calgary have gone, if they don't get an offer that works and he's told, hey, you can either suffer through this or go to a, bona fide cup contender, I,
Hmm.
I could see him changing his mind unless he just really doesn't want to live in Raleigh for whatever reason, which, hey, if these guys have the right to choose that kind of thing, then by all means.
Yes, they definitely do. Now, I respect their opinion if they don't want to live in Raleigh that badly. At the same time, probably not going to be on my well liked players list.
Yeah, if a player ever went very public with that, like that was one of the only things about the Rantanen saga that I think rubbed people the wrong way. I think we can understand the idea of okay, maybe you want to play how Dallas plays or Toronto plays more than you want to play how Carolina plays. Can totally see a high end player like that. Making that decision. But it was like kind of, I think the whole concept of like, oh, well, my fiance doesn't want to live in Raleigh. I think it's hard not to not take that as a little bit of a, oh,
Yeah,
well, fine. I don't want you to live here either. So screw.
yeah. And I remember another thing too. Before we made the trade to get Ransom from Colorado, like I heard Emily Copland's the reporter say, Miko Rantanen, uh, Carolina is one of his possible opportunities if he were to get traded.
Yeah, and who knows how
I
much
was
of
like,
that.
what the heck,
Right. So the question that with that one is like, what was real, what was, his agent kind of planting things in a reporter's ear. And then, their job obviously is if there's even a little bit of credibility to it, you have to say it first before someone else beats you
Yeah.
to it. That's unfortunately kind of the game these days with how instant things happen. But I look back on the Rantanen thing and see that as Rantanen's agent kind of misplaying his hand and Dallas calling
Yes.
their bluff. And the Canes kind of got caught up in the middle of it, which is unfortunate. But obviously, hindsight being 2020, we effectively got Hall, a bunch of first round picks, one of which turned into Miller and
Stankoven.
Stankoven. Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, all things considered, considering their first plan, which was a good plan, didn't work out. I think Tulski flipped that brilliantly.
Oh, he rebounded in such a mastery mode right there that I
Mm-hmm.
don't think a lot of GMs would pull off. Really don't think they would.
No, not at all.
So, Kadri, I think for the cost to get him, let's say he somehow waives his no trade clause and comes here, I think it will cost a bit more than Pettersson, to be honest, to get Kadri. Uh, just looking at the play, because I think Grits is more valued than the skillness
Mm-hmm.
of Pettersson. Again, I'm just trying to compare the two players. It's tough. It really is. But I would say Kadri costs a little bit more. I would say maybe both of Dallas's first and third round pick plus Bradley Nadeau maybe pull it off. Maybe you have to add in Legault or Nystrom, you know?
Yeah, something like that. Or they might even be willing to do something sort of like what the Canes did for Getzel. You put a bottom six player in, which in that trade it was Bunting, and then a lot of your B tier prospects. So kind of quantity over quality, giving a team like Calgary, who's really trying to rebuild from the ground up, just give them a bunch of darts basically, and see if something sticks.
Yep, definitely. The next player on the list, Andrew, is another player from Calgary, and that is Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman, Andrew, he is a veteran, like Nazem Kadri, of course, but you look at his history, he's won quite a few Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think he'd be a very good player to get for the Hurricanes. Um, I don't think his value's up there with Kadri, though. If let's say we were to get him, would you?
Yeah, I see him being a possible target if, say, they made a move like for a Kadri or a Pettersson, and in the process they move out, say, like let's just throw a name out there. Let's say they trade Carrier. I don't think they would, but just kind
No.
of in that role on the roster, bottom six, then a guy like Blake Coleman coming in, who you can probably get for like a second round pick at this phase in his career, because he's definitely in the twilight of it. But you want to talk about a guy who knows how to win, and you give him 10 minutes a night, and he would be a great presence in the locker room on a team already full of very good leaders. Yeah, I could see him being an option. I don't see him being this is the first move we make, but I could see it being a supplementary move to make up for what they had to move out.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, again, it's really tough. I don't like playing the comparison game a lot, but I mean, maybe it takes KK and a second round pick or something, because I just don't see Blake Coleman's value as high as Kadri. I might be undervaluing him. It's tough. It really is tough, but
I think at this part of his career, he's one of those, sign him for a year, and then if you see him going good, great. If not, you flip him, and then he gets to do it over and over again. He's very much a guy who's been there before and knows how to do it, but you're not bringing him in to, drag your team into the fight. Obviously he needs to put up points and contribute, but he's a bottom six player at this phase in his career.
Yes, definitely. The next player I want to talk about, this is not a forward at all, Andrew, but he's a former Hurricane, and he's kind of been out there in trade rumors. He plays for New Jersey, and that is Dougie Hamilton. I don't think he fits the bill with what the Carolina has to offer, but if they were to get Dougie Hamilton, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
The only way I see this being even entertained by the front office is, let's say, Ghost and Nikishin both go down between now and the trade deadline. Knock on wood for even putting that out into the universe. But say the offensive ability of our blue line gets just absolutely decimated between now and the trade deadline. If Jersey is willing to retain salary, then,
they have to.
Exactly. I loved Dougie when he was here. There were things about him I didn't like, things of which we have actually exposed in our series against New Jersey. Like he's a little soft in the corners and those times like you need to see a guy take a hit to make a play. And Dougie's not a small dude. So like in comparison, when you watch a guy like, say, granted, he's not a defenseman, but when you watch Logan Stankoven get absolutely buried sometimes, but he still gets the puck to where he needs to get it to, that's a level of mental toughness that Dougie, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to have. So barring there's no major injuries to this team, I don't even really consider him an option. But we have to at least talk about him because he's going to get moved.
Oh yeah, he definitely is. I think at some point it's just we know Luke Hughes is hurt for New Jersey, and they kind of need that offensive defenseman. But once he gets healthy, I think Hamilton, they're going to try to at least move him. The next player I want to talk about, this is a player that I think does fit the bill. I can see us getting him, and that's Braden Shin from St. Louis. He is a center. I think he's a very good center, and he's on a team that's not really good. I mean, I don't know what the cost is to get him. Well, I mean, what do you think, Andrew?
Uh, that's one that'll be interesting. It depends on what the demand for a Braden Shen is, which obviously there will be some. You add a player like that to your team, it's only going to help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would see him as being a short-term solution at 2C, which, given the makeup of the team, is totally fine to approach something with that.
I
Maybe
wonder if just picks might work.
just picks or something like that Jake Getzel trade, where you throw in a roster piece, not a top 6 guy, but a useful guy who on a team that's trying to reestablish a culture. You get a guy who's been in the Rod Brindamore system coming in there, kind of as a, hey, here in Raleigh, they do it this way, and it's made them a consistent winner. Like, that is very valuable. So that, and maybe say a Robidas and a Alexis Legault. So two B tier prospects.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But he definitely fits the bill, and I think that could be the cost of maybe try and get Braden Shen. The next player, Andrew, is another St. Louis Blues player. He's been out there in trade rumors because St. Louis has just not been good this season. But he's a former Hurricane, Justin Falk. And kind of like Dougie Hamilton, I'd say they're both kind of in the same boat, to be honest. He's not a need. But I do think he'd be a lot more affordable if we were to get Falk, and let's say like Shane Goss's spare, or maybe Jalen Chatfield got hurt,
Yeah, or even if they used, say, a Nystrom or a Riley in a trade to bring something else in, then bringing in Justin Falk would probably be a pretty affordable way to do it. And I mean, Falker's a guy who I think his legacy with Carolina is tainted just by the fact that he was here during the down years. Like, he was the poster child of those really bad teams. So I am really happy that he got to be here for that, really magical run to break the playoff drought and play really good in those playoffs. That goal against the Islanders where he's coming out of the box and it's basically a football-esque pass over his shoulder and he brings it down and scores in the breakaway. Like, he's got that clutch gene in him. So if they do move a defenseman for a bigger trade, this being a supplemental filling that role with a guy that Rod already knows and trusts, I could see that being a move.
Yeah, I really could. And Justin Falk, he's played under Rod Brindamore. Some fans might forget that, but he did play under Rod Brindamore for I believe only one season though. But he played well.
Yeah, he was just here the one season. I think one of the few swings and misses was that trade when they moved on from Falk. I mean, granted, Edmondson was very good, but I think everything else that came in that package never really panned out to anything important. And that's when Falk was still a high-level guy. Now, once he went to St. Louis, who was much more stacked defensively at the time, he kind of faded. He was still good, but he wasn't, standing out from what at the time was a very young Carolina defensive core. So I think he's been kind of lost in the shuffle there a little bit. So, maybe a mid-round pick just to get that contract off of their books moving forward. And Carolina does have some cap space to play with. Could be a good way to kind of supplement that decor should you need to fill a hole. But so sort of like with Coleman, I see that as a supplemental move. I don't see that being like a standalone move.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Andrew, let's get to a DraftKings ad real quick, and then we'll finish out with the rest of the players. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers, bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, Wager tax pass through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved. Alrighty, Andrew. So I'm not gonna go through all the players on this list because I feel like that could take like up to an hour. So I'm just kind of going to be kind of picking and choosing a little bit. But one, I do want to go to a team that possibly, maybe, I say maybe, Seattle. Obviously, Shane Wright has been out there. I, you know that Seattle's kind of wanting to shake things up a little bit. Shane Wright and Matty Beniers. Now, Matty Beniers is going to cost a lot. I love to get Beniers, Andrew, but he's going to cost a lot.
Yeah, Beniers is one of those guys where, I think a name we've seen floated out in trade rumors. Hopefully, they're just rumors, unless it brings in a guy like Beniers. Is a Alexander Nikishin. It's going to cost something like that.
It is.
Get a guy like Matty Beniers, and we're obviously big Nikishin fans. I know he's kind of the golden boy of a lot of people online, but the reality is he's still a third pair defenseman who, granted, he throws bigger hits than anybody. So this is not to this is not to belittle Nikishin and what I think he can be and even currently is. But if you can bring in a guy like Matty Beniers, that there's a real chance in a year or two, your second line center isn't even Beniers, it's Aho. Like, that's a real possibility with how his career is projecting. So, yeah, would love that. The cost kind of scares me, but a guy like Shane Wright, who, maybe they would take a guy like Kotkaniemi prospects and a mid pick.
That's what I was thinking with Shane Wright, because those to me are two players. While Shane Wright's a little bit young, they're kind of in the same boat with two different teams. So I could see something like that, but kind of like with like Blake Coleman or Justin Falk, that's like a supplemental type of trade. It's not like a main trade. It could work out, but for Shane Wright, I mean, we've revitalized players a lot, but you can't just rely on that.
No, and this is a scenario where if I'm Tulsky, I'm putting down my clipboard, I'm shutting off my computer, I'm walking to Rod and just asking him straight up, as a player, as a center, what do you think of this player and his potential? And I'm going squarely on that. I know that the two of them have had to learn kind of to work with each other and learn to take, the other side of the equation, not more seriously, because I think there's always been a level of respect between the two, but you kind of see it in action. I think they both have done that. But a guy like Wright, who would definitely be a project, if he's somebody that Rod has had his eye on for a while and thinks, let me get my hands on that kid and teach him the ropes. Which, I mean, if you want to learn to play the center position at both sides of the ice at a high level, what better coach could you have than Rod Brind'Amour?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how I'd feel if we get Shane Wright, because he is another young guy where we already have lots of young guys already. But it'd be an interesting move, definitely. And Matty Beniers, like, I don't see it, just because I feel like at least it's going to cost Nikishin plus like 2 first-round picks at least.
Yeah, I think Beniers is somebody that, to a more extreme level, if Rod is like, I want him, go make that happen, then okay, sure. But I think the cost, even when I think about the low end, kind of thing, which, I mean, I don't see Ron Francis doing us any favors. So you have to factor that in too. Yeah, just the weirdest hostility thing between Carolina and Ronnie Francis. But yeah, I don't see either of those moves happening, but would I take Beniers on this team in a heartbeat for maybe all of like 4 or 5 guys on this team? Yeah, honestly, I would.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, to be honest, like, I love to have Matty Beniers. I might be willing to trade maybe a Blake or a Stankoven. I don't know. Might be.
Stankoven definitely.
Yeah.
I love his future, but if he's not going to figure out 2C, which I don't think we should, call that project over and done with.
No.
I think even if it's not for this year, down the road, he could still figure it out. But is he someone that you could put between a Ehlers and a Blake, and it instantly makes those two players better? Yeah, definitely.
Oh yes. The next player I want to talk about, Andrew, back to St. Louis, is Robert Thomas. Like Manny Beniers, big cost. Very big cost. I think I saw it. I don't know if it was true, but I think I saw something that it would cost like maybe 3 first round picks plus a high end prospect and a young roster player, possibly. I could be wrong, but something like that. And usually when it comes to a big trade like that, I'm just like, listen, I just don't know about trading Nikishin to get
Hmm.
Thomas. 'Cause I feel like that's what's going to take. And I just don't want to do that, to be honest.
Yeah, if they could find a way to make it say like Nikishin and a first, like okay, yeah, that I'd be comfortable with. But
Yeah.
if they're looking for a total rebuild, multiple first round picks, which I mean, Carolina has put themselves in a position to do that, both the things that they've
Mhm.
acquired. And frankly, if they don't pick in the first round the next 2 years, I'm not going to be overly upset if it's what gets them over the hump. So if it could be something like, say, a couple of firsts, maybe a Stankoven, and maybe like a Charles Alexis Legault, yeah, I'd make that trade.
Yeah, I would too. Or Nystrom, because I feel like
Mhm.
Legault and Nystrom are kind of in the same boat. So, but
Yeah.
Thomas, big price. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, and again, he is a guy that if it does cost a guy like Nick Kishin, if that makes it that you're not giving up 3 first round picks, then that is something you have to consider. Because awesome as he is at this stage in his career, he is still a third pair demon. Whereas Robert Thomas is a guy who comes in, and again, I wouldn't put him above Aho, but I mean, in this system, is he someone that could turn Aho into the 2C? Which I mean, if we're going to move big names like that, I think that should be the goal. Because I think if Aho's your second line center, you become a legitimate bona fide top tier cup contender.
Oh yeah, you definitely do. The next player, Andrew. This is a player where I think there could be a match here a little bit with the New York Rangers. I'd love to have him, former Hurricane, but Vincent Trocheck. I would love to have him come back. He was so good when he was here, and you know what, the Rangers. I mean, I'm not saying that they want to give up probably a guy like Trocheck, but it seems like they really want to go on this retool. And I think they'd be listening on some offers for Trocheck.
Yeah, the Carolina Rangers trend just kind of keeps on
Yeah.
happening. And this would be a fun second wave of it between him and Miller. I have Trocheck at the top of my guys who I would want. Not that like I wouldn't say he's better than a Robert Thomas or even the potential that a Pettersson has, but he knows the system. Seems like he was very popular in the locker room when he was here, and I think he
Seems
will.
like an affordable piece.
Yeah, exactly. Hindsight's 2020, obviously, and they had no idea what the cap was going to do in the years coming. But I think if Tulsky and Waddell knew that the salary cap was going to be where it's at now, I think Trocheck is still here. I think that they thought that they were being smart with money. They thought they were going to get more out of Kokanemi than they did. And yeah, I think Trocheck is a guy who knows the system, fits the 2C role quite well, adds some grit, adds a little bit of feistiness, fieriness that doesn't come at the expense of Rod having to change how that second line would play. So he's the number one target on my board. Granted, I'll own my bias and that I was a huge fan of his.
Yeah, he's
year.
my number one too.
Yeah, so I think we all agree on Trocheck, and I think it's probably going to cost maybe a first, possibly a second, and some prospects. I think that New York is very much looking to just kind of stock up their cupboard with high end prospects, so that in a year
And
or two,
picks too, I would think.
yeah, yeah. So I think you could get him without moving anything significant off the roster.
Yes,
I really do.
I really do too. I'd say probably because we still have a first round pick from Dallas and a third round pick. I
Mhm.
mean, you look at the draft capital that we have. I mean, two firsts could get it done in of itself.
Yeah, and when you hear two firsts, it's a little bit
It is a little bit
misleading.
scary.
It's a bit misleading only because it's Carolina and Dallas's firsts, and that's
Yes.
a realistic Stanley Cup Finals matchup this year, especially if they get a guy like Trocheck or a Robert Thomas or a Pettersson at that 2C. So if that's the reason they don't, have the 29th and 31st pick this year, then that's worth it.
Oh, they definitely are. And Trocheck, oh my gosh. Like, if we got him, Andrew, or any type of second line center, like, I would think our third scoring line, which was, I think, scored tons of goals, would be Stankoven in the middle, Eric Robinson on the other side, and Taylor Hall on the other side. And that could be a very good line.
Yeah, that would be hard to beat because you're right. I do think come playoff time, we're going to see Carrier bumped up to that stall line.
Yep.
Just
Hmm.
have your just banger shutdown line. So I mean, has Mark Jankowski's play made Stankoven a little bit more expendable is not the right word, but short term, if you move on from a guy like that, it's not going to hurt as bad because I think he's been excellent on that fourth line.
He has, but I do think when it comes to playoff time, Jankowski needs to be your first depth piece.
That's fair.
Yeah. Again, you're going all in, and you kind of have to if when you're trying to compete and try and win the cup.
Yeah, and it's also a year where Florida is down and out, and that's a
Yes.
team that I think, every team in the East needs to be looking at and going like, "Oh shoot, it's happening." Like, we have to go now because there's a
Yep.
very real chance those guys are going to finally have a full summer, come back next year and just win it all over again. That's a very real possibility. So the pathway through the East might be the easiest it's going to get for Carolina. And I don't mean that as in any disrespect to like Detroit or Buffalo. Looks like they're kind of coming on. The only team in the East that really scares me is Tampa.
Yep. Tampa, they have the goalie. They've eliminated us before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only team I am concerned about, Andrew. Completely agree with you. The last team I want to discuss, because there are two players that I think Carolina could get. Well, there's another player. Okay. We'll try maybe fit all three in. But Nashville, I want to talk about them because Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly are two centers that definitely I think fit the bill. Now, Stamkos, a little bit of like an Elias Pettersson type of thing situation where I don't like the contract, but boy, he could be good here.
Yeah, he could be good here, and Carolina's biggest issue in the playoffs. You hear the goaltending get a lot of flack about some of these playoff series, and for my money,
Mhm.
ever since Freddie and PK really have been here, they have done more than enough for this team to advance. It's that they haven't been able to get that big goal in a third
Yeah.
period against a team
Mhm.
like Florida or the Rangers. Who has a knack for scoring huge goals in the playoffs? Steven Stamkos.
Yes.
So even if he's a guy who, maybe you do have to occasionally hide on your fourth line just because he is getting a little bit older, put him on the power play, put him on your, offensive draws, and that shot is still lethal. And he's actually been kind of heating up a bit in
He has.
Nashville lately. So I don't hate that idea at all. Ryan O'Reilly, like the one to a lesser extent. To me, Ryan O'Reilly is a guy that I look at as sort of just a less impactful Jordan Stahl, like good two way center, maybe a little bit more offensive, but I don't. If he's what they can get, I'll be happy about it. I kind of feel that way about Braden Shen too, where like there's
Mhm.
guys I would prefer, but if that's who's available and they can get it for an affordable price, do it every single time. Do it. Stamkos though is a guy, especially if they can get them to retain. I actually really love that idea of him coming to Carolina.
Oh yeah, I do too. And I like that you compared O'Reilly in the same boat to Braden Chen because I do think it'd be cheaper to get Ryan O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably costs maybe a first round pick plus a prospect, but I think with Stamkos, we're talking about a guy who I think is kind of in the middle of like a Braden Shin, um, Ryan O'Reilly type of play. He's like right in the middle between and Robert Thomas, you know? Because I
Yeah,
don't think he's as expensive as Robert Thomas. So it would cost quite a bit for Carolina to get Stamkos, but I don't think it will cost at the expense of like a Nikishin.
yeah. You also have to consider like Nashville is going to be happy to get out from under that contract. So if that's
Mm.
something that this front office can fit into it without it really hindering any future plans, then that actually kind of lowers the value and the fact that he's older. So we put him between Braden Chen and Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas is a guy. If you trade him, you're trading him, and he's someone you acquire with the intent of being part of your core. Whereas Stamkos is a maybe year, maybe 2 year, longer term rental piece to try to get you over the hump. Whereas Robert Thomas is the guy you're bringing in to change your core, your makeup of your team.
Yep, exactly. And it's tough because I don't know if I want to bring this player up, but I mean, I think he fits the bill just because he's so big. He's a right-handed centerman, but they could make the playoffs, and that's Charlie Coyle in Columbus. I'd like to get him, but I don't know if Columbus is going to give him up because of where they are in the standings.
Yeah, I mean Columbus is down and out, older center like that. I don't think they have a whole lot of use for him. I think.
He got a hat trick recently, I believe.
Oh yeah,
He's
no,
been doing great.
he's great. And I mean, think back to those series when he was with Boston. He had just a knack for just absolutely killing Carolina in the
Yes,
playoffs.
he did.
So maybe it's as much you get him for yourself as you do just so no one else has him. Because I mean, I remember those series. That's back when they had Chara, they had the perfection line, just such a stacked team. Quite frankly, I think that core of the Boston Bruins might be the most underachieving core in hockey history because that team probably should have more than one cup to its name, quite frankly. But Charlie Coyle just always seemed to be the guy who was killing us.
Oh yeah. Again, I don't know if Columbus is willing to give him up. If they fall in the standing somehow, though, Andrew, like I would pick up the phone and try and get Coyle because I think, especially if they fall in the standings, he'd be an affordable option. I mean, the way he's playing in this season right now, it's definitely going to cost. But I think maybe a few picks might be able to do it.
A few picks, or if there's any GM who's going to be able to look at Carolina's prospect pool and know who these players are, it's Don Waddell.
Yes,
so
it is.
I mean, you can go to him and basically be like, hey, you can't touch Nikishin and maybe say Nystrom, but pick your two favorite prospects and we'll throw in a pick, and
we'll throw in a first round pick.
Yeah, maybe not for Coyle. I don't know if I'd give up a first for Coyle, but then again, we're overvaluing the first because if this goes as planned, it's basically a second round pick. But yeah, I think Coyle makes a lot of sense. It's not the flashiest, most exciting name, but that being said, another guy who knows how to win. And I think you can't have enough of that come playoff, even if he winds up, not being able to hold down the 2C, even if he winds up being your fourth line center, Charlie Coyle, I'm okay with that. That can be on my team every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that's it for the players that we could probably get. So Andrew, let's get to the last part here with the players and the assets that we have that could be involved in a trade here. I think you and I both agree KK is definitely a player that is out there, I would say.
Yeah, he has to be. It's time, and I do want to commend him for the effort he's put since coming back into the lineup because that fourth line has been playing really good. He's been, hasn't really been putting up much point wise, but he's been noticeable. He's been impactful. I think he needs a change of scenery. He's a guy who I am rooting for just because by all accounts just seems like a real, kind, sweet dude. So, you'd like seeing people like that succeed. But it'll be interesting to see. Like, I don't think they're going to flip him just to flip him. They're going to want to get something in return. So the question is he someone that you're getting picks for, or is he someone that you're making part of a package for a big trade?
Yeah, completely agree. And obviously, Andrew, you and I know that Carolina still have Dallas's pick. We mentioned that numerous times in this episode. Those are definitely trade pieces as well, possibly. And heck, if you're able to get a good second line center in without trading one of those Dallas picks, man, that'd be awesome. But I just don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, those picks are definitely in play, I would say.
I think they have to be. This might be a little extreme, but I'm kind of the opinion that if you go into next year's draft with both of those picks, I see that as a bit of GMing malpractice, that you had those assets
Yeah.
and didn't use them, because while in no way do I think Carolina is in a position where they have to worry about that, the window closing, because they do have so many good young players on contract for a
Yeah, they
long
do.
time. Like the contract situation with Carolina is kind of wild. Like usually you do have a couple of guys on the way out that you have to plan around for. Carolina has been giving 3-4 year extensions to everybody, which does make them more valuable trade pieces, by the way. But when you have all these good players ready to go, I think when you have assets like that have potential to be less valuable than they sound, I think you got to move at least one of them to actually push your
Yes.
chips into the middle this year.
I completely agree. I think they should trade them. And I think when it comes to getting a second line center, because that's the utmost need right now. Plus, they probably could use a goalie. I think just another goalie just in case. But to get a second line center, I think you're just going to have to trade those picks in order to get one. I think other players are in play. I love Stankoven, but I could see him being in play.
Yeah, if he's someone you got to move to get a legitimate second line center, or even that borderline player who can knock Aho down to 2C, then yes, Stankoven has to be considered.
Yeah.
And
That's only for a player like Robert Thomas, though.
yes, and that's only if it means that we don't have to give up a guy like a Pettersson in the process too.
Yeah.
But I mean, with his upside, that contract, yeah, that's a super valuable piece, especially for a team that's up and coming. Right now, the issue with him is, if you're Carolina, is you wish you had what Stankoven will hopefully be in like 3 or 4 years, when he's 26, 27, learns the game a bit more. But in terms of just the raw intangibles, the effort, the toughness, I mean, what more could you want from a guy that age? So if you are a St. Louis who's looking to maybe get younger, then yeah, I think a Stankoven is a very intriguing piece.
Yep. And there's also Bradley Nadeau. He's a prospect. And Andrew, I will admit, when Bradley Nadeau played up here in those games, like you can tell there's stuff that needs to be improved, but the sky's the limit, especially with that shot and the offense that he produced. I actually thought he got better in the games that he played for Carolina. But again, kind of like the Dallas picks, if it costs Bradley Nadeau to get a second line center, then you got to trade him. And I just don't think there's a future for him here, to be honest.
Not in the short term. Things could change even by next year, but
yeah, they could.
The winger depth on this team is just so solid. I mean, you got Taylor Hall probably playing on your fourth line when everything's clicking the way it's supposed to, and I think he's at least a third, maybe even a borderline second line winger on a lot of teams in the league. So it's a tough egg to crack, and it's a valuable trade chip that I think can help you fetch what you actually need in the here and now, instead of hoping that this guy can round out the rest of his game. But I do agree with you that last game he played, when he got the call up, you can see that the rest of his game is starting to round out a little bit. I want to say that he threw a hit in the game, which you love to see from your more finesse guys. So really no wrong move with Nadeau as far as I'm concerned. But if I'm Tulsky, then I'm basically going into my trade talks with Nadeau, a first round pick, and KK as like the package that's in the back of my mind, being like, this is what I'm trying to move for a 2C.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like that'd be my question to Tulski too. Like if I had any question to him, I'd be like, what is your long-term plan for Bradley Nadeau? Because if he's not part of your long-term plan, you gotta trade him while his value's hot. You just have to. I mean, to me, the only plan I could see him is Taylor Hall retiring, and then he just kind of steps into that spot. But that takes time, and we're in the now situation of winning the cup. So I just don't think that aligns well.
Yeah, and I like how whether it was Tulski or Waddell that whenever they do take a big swing, they're very good at still at not entirely compromising the future. Like you know,
Yep.
circling back to the Getzel trade, some of those prospects they gave up were higher end guys, but you managed to do that and not give up a Blake or a Nikishin. So even if they wanted to just overwhelm a team with just a list of names, like I do have faith in this front office and knowing who they actually see fitting their system, because not moving Blake and Nikishin obviously has worked out fantastically for them. And I bet Pittsburgh's kind of kicking themselves that they let those guys slide.
Yeah, they definitely are. Uh, the last thing I think that could be in play, and I'm going to group them together just because they're both young defensemen, but Legault and Nystrom, they play great in the NHL for us. Really have. But kind of like Bradley Nadeau a little bit, I would say. If you can improve and it's at the expense of trading at least one of them, I don't know how I feel about trading both, but at least one of them. Remember, you also have Dominic Badinka too, who is so you might struck gold there, might. Um, but if it means trading one of those players to get a second line center, you do it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And like circling back to what we were talking about before, there are older veteran guys who you can bring in to fill the role that a Joel Nystrom is playing. But that being said, I think he's starting on your third pair on most teams in the NHL, whereas here it's a matter of health. Now we know in the playoffs that defensemen can sometimes just kind of drop like flies.
Yes.
So I'm less willing to move him. Nystrom in particular is a guy where I'm like, not to overvalue him because he is a third pair defenseman, could have even overachieved a little bit. But in terms of taking assets, getting value for it, and then flipping it, if they can take a 7th-round pick, strike 7th-round gold, and get a Joel Nystrom, and then flip that and do something that is in your top 6, that's a good bit of business by Carolina if they can do something like that.
It is. Again, I am a little bit probably guarded with trading probably maybe both Legault and Nystrom because you need to have that defensive depth. And listen, Mike Riley, I think he is a good depth piece, but you need to have multiple depth pieces, Andrew, when it comes to the defense. Like we saw that what was it, COVID year run playoffs when Jacob Slavin got hurt. Like you need that defensive depth.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw it this past year when you had rookie Scott Morrow and rookie Nikishin going against Florida all of a sudden, and go figure, they weren't ready for it.
No, they were not.
You definitely want to avoid that. But that being said, like I just really feel very comfortable going into the playoffs with Riley and Nystrom as our 7 and 8.
Yep.
But I mean, you got to give good to get good. So I think it's something you do need to be comfortable with doing. That being said, I think it's more the forward prospects that are probably on the table for this team right now.
Yep, I completely agree. And another thing too, like the reason why our forward prospects are more on the table is because we already have so many young forwards already on the roster. Stankoven and Blake. Jarvis is considered young. I would say Svetch is youngish, to be honest. So there's just a lot of youth already.
Yeah, even Ahu's really not that old. It feels like he's been here forever, but he's he's still well into the right side of 30. But I don't know how much younger this team can afford to get. Obviously, bringing in a guy like Robert Thomas, who is in that same kind of age group as like the Ahos, but that's still at least like that's a guy who is probably entering the prime. You don't see a whole lot of guys figure it out in their 30s. Like, for every Brandon Bussey, there's a million guys who just don't ever pan out kind of stories.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if they can flip potential and high-end picks to get something that's more established in any way, shape, or form, I think this is a year that you have to do it, especially considering what's going on around the rest of the league, because the West is probably going to eat itself alive in the playoffs. And then, I mean, there's some teams that I think do match up well against Carolina. That last time they played against Buffalo and the way that they took it to Carolina, I was very impressed by them. So surprisingly worried about Buffalo, but I mean, that being said, it's the Canes and Tampa right now. It's between them and it's theirs to lose. So you need to be looking at Tampa and say, how do I beat them? Because while they're not Florida level,
they have the goaltending.
I'll just say they're not Florida dirty, but they're not too far behind, honestly.
Yeah, and they have the goaltending, which has been the kryptonite for this Canes team. So yeah, fun episode, Andrew. Looking at all those possible trade avenues with all those players. We'll see what happens come trade deadline.
We shall see. And if my memory serves me right, the schedule is this is going to be the 4th episode of our break time episode. So hopefully you're listening to this while bracing for the Americans to win gold.
Yep, exactly. Well, we hope you have a nice rest of your day, where whatever time or day you're listening to this, and we will see you guys next time.